This is the Sports Porch, Philadelphia, with your hosts, the Grand Schwabini, Rube, and me, your technical director. Come on, Philly, show us a little Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, and Sixers love. The Philadelphia Sports Porch starts now.
Believed in you. I believed in you, technical director.
I love it.
You know it.
Good work.
And we got one more thing for you right here.
Done,
there you
technical
go, boys.
director.
There you go. If you're watching live all over the world, this is the Philadelphia Sports Porch on Facebook, YouTube, and X. We now have a Twitter page, the Philadelphia Sports Porch on X. And of course, you can always follow us on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. Get on over there and subscribe. And I'm going to drop a comment here right now. You can listen to us on our internet radio station on Radio PGH. I dropped the stream in the comments. So, one more thing. This is a podcast. I drop it right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or anywhere you get
your flipping podcast.
That's right, your flipping podcast. So here we are, boys. Fly, Eagles, fly. It's on to Super Bowl Sunday. I am your technical director. Across from me in the studio is the Grand Schwabini, and the one more win Philly fan living in Texas, Rube is down below me, and we're going to talk about the news of the day.
The news of the day, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl.
That's right. Let's go right to page one. Page one, it's a Super Bowl rematch, and it is set. Kansas City,
it is.
Philadelphia.
It's revenge time.
Yeah.
Revenge time.
Absolutely. So you guys must be really happy, right?
Ecstatic.
Life is good.
Ecstatic. Yeah. It was, it's interesting, not to start off the show with stats, but if we could just get to the NFC championship game, we win by a lot. And the margin of victory is getting bigger and bigger as the years go on. So
that 55 spot was the most ever in, I think, any NFC or AFC championship game.
Yeah, it was
rushing touchdowns.
It was seven rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And they even threw for one too.
Yeah, who had the seventh one? Because Hurts
Will
had
Shipley.
Shipley.
That's right, Shipley.
Will Shipley could have been the MVP of yesterday's game.
Yeah. Shipley ended up with 77 yards rushing. His touchdown rush was 57 yards. But as everybody knows by now, the Eagles are set to go back to the Super Bowl 2 years after losing to Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So this is the big rematch. Saquon Barkley had a game. He rushed for 118 yards. That first play from scrimmage for him was amazing. Actually, Schwaber, I think
Should we take a look at it?
I think you sent me this. Yeah.
All right.
Here's Barkley, a little shovel, looking for an edge, gets it, Saquon Barkley, first down, Barkley, Saquon, touchdown.
That last cut he made, that's when I knew the game was over. We were talking about it before the show, but that last cut he made when he was able to get through the line, and then he's in the secondary, I was thinking, this is going to be a long day for the Commanders. I thought he was going to be tackled, but that last cut back across the field when he split everybody, this game's over already.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, for whatever reason, I just woke up that morning and I felt like they were going to win big.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I felt they were going to win big, I felt like there was just an enormous amount of disrespect for the Eagles in this game by the media.
You think so?
Just enormous disrespect. I mean, the Eagles are better at every single position except quarterback.
Right. Right.
And how many Super Bowls has Jaden Daniels been to? I mean, like, come on, you know what I mean? And, you know, and so many different things, like their offense, you know, they can't pass the ball, you know, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they want if they want to.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a guy who rushes for 2,000 yards, there's a lot of games where you just honestly don't need to throw the ball.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the passing game stinks.
No.
It just means that you didn't use it. Now, sometimes what happens is when you don't use it, you don't get into a rhythm and then it doesn't look as good.
Right.
But, you know, from like, you know, the Commanders were talking up, you know, a whole bunch of smack. And, you know, I heard the defensive coordinator saying like, oh, if they run Jalen, we're going to treat him like a running back. We're going to hit him.
Right.
And I was just thinking like, you know what? When you do that, that just fuels guys so much. It just gets them even more motivated than they already are.
Did you happen to catch the Jalen Hurts press conference after the game?
Yeah.
You know, I was feeling so good about Jalen and the team and whatnot. And he says, well, he took the straitjacket off of me. And I haven't had a chance to listen to a lot of sports radio today. And I'm just wondering if that was picked up upon and if anybody's making a big deal out of that.
You know what? I picked up on it. Nobody's made a deal of it at all.
I'm surprised. I also noticed that he didn't take the follow-up question from the guy.
But that was just his way of saying. That was his way of saying, like, look, you know, all these people are saying that I suck. You know, I'm doing what they're asking me to do. I'm not turning the ball over, and I'm handing the ball to Saquon Barkley.
Right.
But if we want to throw it, I can throw it.
Right. I think if you go back to the beginning of the season, if you remember, my Super Bowl prediction was the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl on the back of Saquon Barkley. I said he was the missing piece.
Yeah.
And because of that, it takes all the pressure off of Jalen Hurts, or not all of it, but a lot of it. And just like you said, you know, you have the option of throwing the ball, but you're handing it to Barkley. He's setting the tone. And, you know, that being said, Hurts ends up going 20 of 28 for 246 yards and a passing touchdown to A.J. Brown, who had 6 catches for 96 yards. Listen, if Brown has anywhere over 75 yards receiving in a game and 5 catches and a score, that's pretty good. I mean, and, you know, the next guy was Dallas Goedert. And Devontae Smith had 4 for 45. I mean, they don't need the passing game to light it up for 300 yards a game.
Well, and
did you see Goddard run the ball? Did you see the little tight end sweep?
That's new.
Yeah,
I loved it.
And the other thing too that I've always said was really important is a lot of it also depends on the play calling. Like, you know, if you put Jalen back there for like a 7-foot drop and everybody's running down the field 30 yards. Yeah, that's a situation where he's got a chance of getting sacked. But you get the ball out of his hand quick, you know, 5-yard, 10-yard passes to Brown and Goddard and Smith. They're going to make extra yards out of it. Yeah. You know, it's not that hard.
Put it in the hands of your playmakers and let them make plays.
Exactly.
And, you know, the thing yesterday, I looked at the numbers and it was like 8 pressures, 2 sacks on 28 attempts. But what you didn't see yesterday was Hurts taking really bad sacks. He was getting the ball out of his hand. He was throwing it away. He did a little bit of Benny Hill, you know, running for his life a little bit back there, but he was able to escape it and get rid of the ball and no turnovers.
Yeah. So let's move on to page 2 here right away, because this is going to get a little more in depth with the conversation. Game balls, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Rube, let's start with you. You know, obviously when you have a win of this magnitude, there's a lot of good.
Correct.
But Rube, let's try to keep it to like what you think your best good is.
One good.
Just one.
Game ball.
I thought they won the game on the 4th and 5 throw. That was the good.
That was a nice throw, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's such a funny, you know, they actually hit that play earlier in the year.
I remember it.
It was a touchdown. The thing that's interesting about that play, though, that's one where if they don't hit that, we say, It's 4th and 5. You can't throw it 6 yards.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you give them the ball back in the middle of the field.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I thought,
was
technical director, you said it was over with the Barkley run.
Yeah.
I thought it was over. I thought that was demoralizing. I thought it was a dagger before we even knew it was a dagger. That was a huge play. So that's my good.
I actually did not think that the game was over until about midway through the third quarter. Yeah, I didn't think it was over. I mean, I saw that the Commanders weren't going away. Jaden Daniels, to be honest, Jaden Daniels played fine. His team kept dropping the ball on him.
Yeah, he was 29 of 48 for 255 and a touchdown with that late interception.
Yeah, so
is Jaden Daniels your good?
What's that? No,
Is Jaden Daniels your good, Rob?
You're good.
Well, I was just going to when I thought the game was over.
Yeah.
You know, I thought the game was over like when we were up like 19 points, like late in the third quarter.
Right.
You know, but I thought it was, as long as it was within 2 scores, I considered the Commanders were still in it with 2 scores.
I'm reacting because our mascot Sassy is playing and throwing her toys all over the floor.
Yes.
And I'm afraid she's going to bump one of the wires out. And so if you lose us, it's the dog's fault.
Yeah.
The dog gave me homework.
I'm going to go for the good. I'll go AJ Brown. I mean, it's obvious that Saquon Barkley is the good. You could also say Jalen Hurts is the good. But those are the 2 obvious. So I'll just go AJ Brown. I thought that, you know, he caught the ball, he got extra yards, he caught a touchdown pass. I don't think there were any bad drops. Maybe one was a drop, but decent play by the cornerback. So I'll give it to AJ Brown.
Okay, well, my good is going to come from one of these highlights that you set up for me.
They can just run some basic execution.
De'Ami Brown with his speed on the cross. Brown runs into DeJean. Ball is out. Eagles recover.
That is my good. My good was the defense this game. Zach Bond showed why he's an all-pro. Probably the best free agent signing in the league this year.
After Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, that one is like that one will be forever above the clouds.
That's like 1A and 1B.
That was one where it was like it's obvious. The Zach Bond signing was genius, and my good was the defense because, like you said when we were all texting, you know, the game. I mean, you look back on it now in a 55-23 win. It's not even close,
right? But it was close.
It was close. It was close through 3.5.
Here's the thing: if you take those turnovers and what's his name? Owen Burks.
Owen Burks
again. Owen Burks.
Yeah, I mean, if you take those turnovers out of the game, I think the game is close until the end.
Oh yeah,
that's what I think
for sure.
And you know, Jaden Daniels showed again. I think in the beginning of the game, you could see for the first time he was a little nervous because some of his passes were low into the ground. It was like he didn't want to let go of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's as nervous as that kid looked during that game.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Eagles aren't forcing those and the turnover on that punt was the killer. That to me was that was the final dagger. I knew the game was over when Barkley ran 60 yards in the first quarter from the first play because that's just, you know, how are you going to solve that? But when they fumbled that punt, when he came in and knocked that punt out, and I like the description that Brady said, he said, "Eat the ball." You know, teach you to eat the ball. He hit it with his helmet.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the Commanders' fake punt was amazing.
Yeah, it really was. It was timed
that would definitely be on the good list if you're a Commanders fan.
Right. Here's what I want to know. Here's the thing. Tress Way 1 for 1 for 23 yards. His quarterback rating was 118. So
I will say though, like, you know, sometimes I don't get it. Like, I saw that happening. Didn't you guys see it happening? They were doing all this. They were doing all this movement around the top of the line. I'm like, this is a fake. This is a fake. This is a fake. But, you know, of course, the guys on the field didn't see it.
Yeah, and Steve chimes in. Sirianni gets his game ball, had his team ready to play on all aspects of the game. So that was my good. My good was the defense. They came to play. They knew that Jaden Daniels was going to play football. They knew that Terry McLaurin was going to catch a touchdown pass. They knew they couldn't stop that overall unless they were able to get turnovers, and that's exactly what they did. And Rube talked about that last week. He said that would be the difference in the game, and it was 100%.
Yeah, they had to keep them in the low 20s and to score over 30.
Yep,
and that's what they did.
That's what they did. So, Rube, anything bad from the game?
You know, I think it would be picky. I think our offensive line was off rhythm, but there were injuries, and I think that's why, right? The snap that hit his butt, you know, the false start. You could tell Dickerson hadn't played there for a while. And I'm nervous about those two big hosses up front. So what do you think we go get Kelsey and suit him up for the Super Bowl? Do you think he can play?
Yeah.
I don't know though. I think with 2 weeks, those guys will be okay.
I hope so.
You know,
yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, those guys are warriors.
They are.
I mean,
they are.
For Dickerson to say, he did play center in college,
Right.
so, but he stayed out there, and Juergens to be active. That was a pretty good coaching move,
Right.
To say like we might have a problem here, and say, can you go? And he wanted to go in. You could tell.
Right.
I was worried for them when he did come in. I thought, oh, that could be a problem. If his back is a real problem, he could end up on his back, and that would be bad, but he didn't. So my second good would be their offensive line play, because normally when you have that kind of issue on an offensive line, it spells a disaster.
Oh, we get 2 goods? I thought we were going to bad and ugly.
No, I'm just saying, if I had another good to pick, Rube, I'm the technical director. I get to choose these things.
Fair enough, TD.
So your bad was the offensive line, the situation is what you're saying.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, how do you pick a bad out of that game? It's tough.
I can.
Mark always has.
I'm going to assign the bad.
Negadelphia.
I'm going to assign the bad to the one guy that our famous Rube coined the most important Eagle on the team.
Second most.
Look, I get it. It was 54 yards, but he used to hit that routinely with no problem. And at that point in the game, it really hurt them.
Yeah.
At that point in the game, it really hurt them. It gave the Commanders the ball at like midfield, and that's when they went down, scored a touchdown, made it 14-12. It really hurt them at that point. You know, that's not something we can deal with when we're playing the Chiefs.
No, you're right.
Unless we put up a 50 burger.
Yeah.
But Butker makes that kick.
Yeah.
Sure.
10 times out of 10.
Well, what I thought was really interesting was the first extra point was not straight.
No.
And then that field goal, it wasn't like he missed it. He kicked it to the other side of the stadium.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I was like, that's not good.
Yeah.
Have faith in Jake, boys. Have faith. We're going to need him.
He did hit 7 extra points, though, so we'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, everyone last week was, why doesn't he hit his extra points?
Yeah. I really didn't see my bad and ugly are actually the same, so I'll just do them. And it was Jake Elliott. It was that incredible miss where it just didn't look like it was even in the vicinity. It's a 54-yard field goal. In years gone by, the teams wouldn't even attempt those. Nowadays they're almost routine.
Right.
But at the same time, for him to shank it like that was kind of like, what's going on? And combining that with the first extra point that barely made it in.
Right.
It's obvious that whatever he's got going on, he hasn't completely worked it out yet.
Did you notice, technical director, though, on the first extra point, it was actually a really bad snap. The timing was off.
Yeah, it was.
I know, but I think that there's a lot of good/bad snaps that completely go unnoticed for kickers, that they kind of have their rhythm.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm taking anything away from the fact that it was a bad snap, but it's kind of like this seems to be Elliott's issue right now. And against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I'm gonna put myself out on a limb and say he's probably gonna have to be perfect So that was my bad and ugly. Other than that, I saw a complete team effort from the Eagles through this entire special teams causing the turnover and all that kind of stuff. So I'm combining them.
Any ugly for you, Rube?
Well, again, tough to call it bad or ugly, and I don't know where this would fall. It definitely wouldn't be ugly, but I was a little nervous when we kept giving up third down out routes, up and down the damn field.
Mm-hmm.
So you get these wide receivers on Bond, and they do an out route every time they went for it on third and fourth down. They were making it. That's why, like you, I was surprised they didn't go for it on that first drive on that short fourth down. So, I don't know. That made me a little nervous that they were easily converting third and fourth downs.
And I'll give you my ugly. You know what? Nobody said that the ugly has to be the Eagles.
It doesn't.
I'm going to go with Luvu. Or jumping off sides 14 times.
Yeah, I think it was only 13, but
on the tush push. That actually brought up stuff that I've never heard in my life. I've never heard a referee say, if this behavior continues, we can award a
points, a touchdown.
Like I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was, kind of a little bit ridiculous. I mean, in some ways I can sort of get the idea, like, the ball only moves like 6 inches, so why not? Maybe if you time it right, you get a turnover, or you get the guy 4 yards back. But I don't know. I just thought like he was being an idiot at that point.
We don't need that guy hurting our center too. Who's already hurt.
I thought, like, to be honest, I thought it was kind of like embarrassing for the Commanders. That's kind of.
And I thought the first one should have been a roughing the passer. He hit him
in the head,
right in the head.
Yeah.
So quote from, I got a text from Emma Rubenstein. God bless her. She goes, LOI, why does that guy keep playing leapfrog?
Yeah, I think at that point in the game, I think it was, first of all, you could see that Luvu during the whole game was timing the snap.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to get it,
He made a few plays.
He's a pretty good player. If the Commanders can shore up that defensive line and get another good linebacker and maybe a safety, he's a great complementary player because he has incredible speed and he's good at timing the snaps, but
he's also dirty. He's getting a reputation as a dirty player.
Yeah, well, I mean, that happens. Yeah. So, but it was getting a little ridiculous for me too. It was kind of like, look, you're obviously not going to time it perfect. Let's just let him score.
Yeah,
just let him score. So, but at the same time, the game was pretty much decided. It was anyway, and that was the other reason. A Jizzle Epps on Facebook says the quarterback better not fuck up. Well,
do we know a Jizzle Epps? Is he a friend of the show?
No, we do not know Jizzle Epps.
He's a friend now. He's obviously an Eagles fan. You look at all the Eagles emojis he's got there. He's summarizing, I think, what all of Eagles Nation says. And, and if you go back and you think about how it's been going throughout the year and even last year, who are the top two people to get criticism from the fans and the media on this team right now?
Quarterback and the coach.
Quarterback and the coach, yeah.
Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. And I mean, I think Jalen Hurts has a point. He runs the offense the way they tell him to run the offense, and he does it fairly efficiently. And if he didn't, they wouldn't be going to the Super Bowl.
Is Nick Sirianni the best coach ever? Does anyone have a better record in their first 3 or 4 seasons and been to the Super Bowl twice?
No, nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
Yeah. And
at what point do we got to give this guy some credit? I'd be the first one to get on his ass early in the season, but at what point do we give this guy credit?
Yeah. I've been wondering that for the last couple of years from you guys, all of you guys, because, and look, when it came to the Pittsburgh Steelers, for a long time, I was a Tomlin defender. I am no longer that. But when it's come to Nick Sirianni, and I think Mark will remember this, the last 3 years, when everybody's been down on them, I have been the one that has said, look, he's putting together great seasons. Yes, last year they had a collapse. There's lots of teams that go through times like that, but that doesn't mean he's not the coach that's going to take you back to the promised land. Give him the right weapons, and they signed Saquon. And what did he do? Well, between him and Kellen Moore,
Right.
2,000 yards, and here you are sitting on the precipice of another Lombardi trophy. So yeah, I think he's a pretty damn good coach. All coaches make bad decisions. You see it in every game you watch.
Yep. True.
And his emotions and yelling at Eagles fans or whatever he did a few weeks back. I mean, come on, he's human. Now would Andy Reid have done that when he coached the Eagles?
No.
Would Bill Parcells have done that? Possibly.
Maybe.
But I'm just saying, times are different now. You have to look at the way things in media are handled now, and once in a while things are going to boil over. I think he's a fantastic coach. I don't know why there's so. I mean, I understand why there's criticism in the game decision making, but overall handling a team. Look, last year at the end of the year, given what everybody thought after they lost those 5 games or whatever it was, and a Jizzle is a friend of the show. He says we're right. Anyway, thanks for being here. I'm sure a Jizzle is not your real name, but if it is, if it is, congratulations. So. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. I mean, last year there was the potential last year for that team to fall to pieces. And there was the potential, even in bringing in a guy like Saquon Barkley, that he wasn't going to fit personality wise. You just don't know.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he did a great job this year. And yeah, when they were 2-2 and not looking too good, I mean, I'll admit, I mean, I was like, let's get rid of him now.
I know.
But you know what, that type of guy, he's learned from his mistakes, right? He's still a young coach.
Yeah.
And he's learning from his mistakes, and you can see it, and the execution's there. And yes, Howie has given him a hell of a team. However, you got to keep that team together and moving forward, and they seem to all be on the same page at the right time.
Yeah, well, one thing for sure is the team does play for him.
Yes.
They play for him, they respect him, they respect the game plan, they believe it can win. And and that's the bottom line. I think the part that most of us who were calling for his job were frustrated about was over aggressiveness. And I think that as the season has moved along, he's tamed that quite a bit. Like yesterday, he made one aggressive move. It was, throwing a bomb on 4th and 5, and it worked, and that was great. But he didn't, push it. Like he didn't do any let's go for it on 4th and 7 from our own 40. He didn't do that. So he's not doing that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah. Well, and he really he didn't have to.
No, he didn't have to.
When the defense is causing turnovers, and the running game is clicking, and your quarterback, that the one thing I will say, and Brady mentioned this on the broadcast, if I'm going to have a criticism, and this has been a criticism of Jalen Hurts for a long time, he does tend to hold on to the ball. And the saving grace for him in yesterday's game is the fact that the Redskins don't really have a great defensive line. I mean, they have 2 great interior tackles. One wasn't playing.
Yeah.
That was a big loss for them. I didn't realize Payne wasn't playing. That was big.
Yeah, huge loss. But they did put some pressure on him. But whenever he tends to hold on to the ball, that's when bad things happen. So that being said, going into the Kansas City game, they have the 9th ranked defense. They're more aggressive. You've got Spagnuolo. He's a defensive genius, just like Fangio. I think he's going to have to work on getting that ball out a little quicker. And I think you're going to see a lot more of those slant patterns, and those hot reads from him. And I hope that's what they're focusing on.
It's all how it's called.
Yeah.
It's all how it's called. This game was called very well.
Yeah.
You just got to call it right. About with this team, they can throw that blitz on you from anywhere at any moment. And on every play, you've got to have a hot read. You got to be prepared for it. So
yeah, the blitz was scary yesterday. Hey, Saquon did a good job picking up some blitzes. They missed a whole call, that's for sure. But I'll tell you what, he did a really good job picking up his blitzes, and Spagnuolo will be coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they're going to be bringing pressure all over the place. So we'll see what happens there. Now, page 3, Schwaber, you have here as position grades. I'm going to start it off because mine's going to be the easiest. I think every position gets an A. That's just the way that's truly the way I feel. I feel like the Eagles played a complete game.
Yeah, I guess you go 55 to 23. It's an A.
Well, I mean,
plus.
It's probably is. I mean, Hurts with 3 touchdowns, and we do have a highlight of one of his touchdowns.
First to throw, near side, lets her rip. Brown, touchdown!
Great throw.
That was
Great
AJ
throw.
Brown's touchdown.
Well, it's from Hurts.
But so quarterback play, you give him an A. Running back, you give him an A. Offensive line, definitely an A. Defensive line, linebackers, secondary with Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. The A's across the board. If I'm going to give a B, I'll give a B to special teams to
just because of Jake Elliott.
Jake Elliott missing a 54-yard field goal badly.
Right.
Other than that, I don't see any other grades. I mean, unless you guys disagree with me.
No, I pretty much agree with you.
Rube?
Yeah. Hard to disagree with. I'm looking at my notes, and as I said earlier, maybe the offensive line could have been a little bit better due to the injuries. The rhythm was off a little bit.
Yeah.
We did let up some pressures that we normally wouldn't give up, but I'm being nitpicky.
You are. Well, I mean, but they had a guy playing out of position.
I caveated my statement. I know we had guys playing out of position.
Just give them an A for effort. I mean, good God. He's playing out of position. He can hardly walk. And then their injured starting center comes in with a bad back, and they continue to score.
There's no moral victories. There's no moral victories at this point in the year, technical director. They're not going to get an A for effort if they're playing in pain when they shouldn't be in the Super Bowl.
Negadelphia.
Bring back Kelsey. Bring back Kelsey now.
Never goes away. It's always there. The Negadelphia.
Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to argue with that victory yesterday.
Okay, well, this is the Sports Porch Philadelphia. If you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, or X, you're watching all over the world. And, of course, you can always subscribe to the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. We're trying to grow that channel. We do also have a Twitter channel, an X channel, the Sports Porch Philadelphia or Philadelphia. I don't know what it's called, but type it in. You'll find it. And we will be showing up on TikTok soon. I'm going to drop the podcast right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your friggin' podcasts. So what do we have coming up here? We do have a comment. Amy May says, bring back Kelsey. And she spelled it wrong. May, there's an E on the end of that.
We really don't need Kelsey back. No, I mean, I know that hopefully that's tongue in cheek because, Cam Jurgens did make the Pro Bowl this year.
It's 100% tongue in cheek. But I'll tell you what, why don't we play the hypothetical? Let's say Jurgens is out. Let's say Dickerson's out. Would you consider it?
Sure. I mean, you're talking about two.
He's not in football shape.
Yeah.
You can't.
I don't think Jason Kelsey was ever really in football shape, to be honest with you.
Well, actually, he's probably in better shape now than when he played football.
My guess is he's probably lost some weight. But I'll tell you what, if we were desperate, I don't know how tongue in cheek that comment would have been, to be honest with you. And you have a Hall of Famer at the ready who knows the plays, knows the team, probably is still in pretty good shape.
I mean, look, I'd consider it if you told me that Cam Jurgens was definitely out, and it looked like Landon Dickerson was going to be playing pretty banged up.
Right.
But I think they're gonna feel like they're both, they're going to both be okay after 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And Steen played a good game too. He was impressive.
He did.
All right. We got 2 more comments. Kelsey is rooting for his brother, says Steve.
I actually don't think
blasphemy.
Amy is actually serious.
Yes.
He says.
I actually don't think he is rooting for his brother. I think he's got so many friends on the Eagles that he went through all those wars with that he wants to see get a ring. Yeah. I don't think so. I think
his brother already has 3.
Brother has 3. I mean, what does he care? He's
the question.
Swift. I mean,
the question is, who does Taylor Swift root for?
Well, she's a fraud.
Yeah. There's your take.
That's what we want to get circulating. That'll go big.
Taylor Swift is a fraud.
Right.
The
Okay.
Grand Champions hot take of the day.
Yes.
Page 4, here it is. Super Bowl 59. Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. I love how they always say that. It's like they don't ever really play against each other.
That's true.
But let's talk about this.
But they will be the two that will get the blame or the praise.
Yes. Let's talk about, well, it depends, but yeah,
Right.
most likely. Let's talk about this game. What are you guys looking for?
Listen,
what do you think, Rube? Do you think we can win?
I absolutely think we can win. I think, listen, both offenses are capable of winning with the run and the pass. They're very close. Regardless of how dominant they looked, Kansas City's still 17-2 and scoring points and finding ways to win. They have all their studs back. They got Pacheco back. Hunt's playing well for them. They can pass the ball. The question's going to be who's going to protect their quarterback better and who's going to avoid the turnovers. So that's number one. On the defense, I think the units are, they're both really good. Eagles are number one defense, but you know what? Kansas City, I don't know what they're ranked, but they can't be that far behind.
I think they're ninth.
They're ninth.
Yeah, so they're a solid team. So who's going to have the better game plan, Spagnuolo or Fangio? I think it'll be really intriguing to see how that plays out. So those are my two big keys of the game.
Here are some of the stats for Kansas City for the game last night against Buffalo. They won 32-29. So Mahomes was 18-26 for 245 yards and 1 passing touchdown. Sound familiar?
Like the same as Jalen.
Almost Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, same thing.
Now, Kareem Hunt, 17 carries for 64 yards and a TD. Mahomes, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. Just like Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Their big receiver, Worthy, 6 receptions, 85 yards and a score. Juju is back, 2 receptions for 60 yards. That guy is one of the luckiest guys.
Yeah, I can't stand him.
Yeah. And Kelsey only had 2 catches in that game. So what I'm looking at here, other than the outlier of Barkley having 118 yards and a 60-yard score, is I'm looking at a very similar statistic laden offense.
It's a pretty even game.
Yeah,
it's a very even game.
It's a pick 'em type game. The one thing that I try to think about that to try to make myself feel better is this. I definitely think that we're a better team than we were 2 years ago.
Right.
Because I think Saquon Barkley makes us better.
Absolutely.
I would hope that Jalen Hurts learned from the first Super Bowl that it's not important for him to look the best. I mean, look, statistics wise, he outperformed Patrick Mahomes by a mile, but the only statistic that matters is winning.
Right.
And the fumble.
Yeah. So no turnovers. Give me 150 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns, and that's all we need.
Yeah, and Amy says, can Kansas City stop Barkley? That's a big question.
Who knows?
The answer is, can they? Yes. The real question is, will they? And
right,
that answer we won't know until the game is played.
Right.
I'd like to make my prediction now. Technical
hold on.
during Grand Schwab. Oh, we can't make our predictions.
I'm not done quite yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tell Grand Schwabini.
I just talked about the offense.
Yeah.
Now I would say that the defense is much better than it was in 2 years ago. Now, caveat to that, 2 years ago, you had like one of the most sacks ever in a season. Okay. So that was something that team had. But I think that the defense overall is just much better 3 levels now than it was then.
May I pile on to that? Grand Schwabini?
Sure.
I think what we'll see different this year, if we're in a close game or ahead, that Fangio will know how to make the adjustments at halftime, and Gannon didn't. And I think we're superior, yes, on all 3 levels. but we got a coach who knows what he's doing and has been there. Well, he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but I am confident that if we need to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments, which we didn't do 2 years ago.
Right. So, and like you might think that this is something small, but a big play in that game 2 years ago was the punt return that Kadarius Toney had, like his one good play in the league.
Yeah, really.
But we got a much better punter now. We got much better special teams. I mean, they've gotten 2 turnovers on special teams in the postseason. Now you can't bank on that, but coverage has been very good. People aren't starting out with the ball at 45 every time. So, I think the team is as a whole better than it was 2 years ago. I don't actually think that Kansas City is better than they were last year or 2 years ago. I think that Kansas City is a team that knows how to win, has a great coach, has a great quarterback, who have a knack for making plays at the end of games. And that might be enough for them to beat the Eagles. But I will say this. I sort of look, the Detroit Lions might have won the Super Bowl if they didn't have all those injuries on defense. Okay. But I thought all along, like, the Commanders, they have a shot to beat the Lions because they've got no defense. They're kind of like, it's sitting there, somehow, some way, with all these, guys walking off the street, Detroit kept winning every game, but eventually it was going to catch up to them. And there's a part of me that feels like, this entire season, Kansas City has won every game at the end, whether they blocked a field goal, whether they made a field goal, whatever the heck it was. But there's a part of me that says maybe against the next best team in the league, it finally doesn't happen for them. That the luck kind of finally runs out. I mean, they've won I think they've got I don't know, somewhere between 12 and 18 consecutive wins in one-score games.
Now
at some point, the luck's got to run out.
Steve's going to remind us, of course, that they have the refs on their side as well. You got to beat the refs.
Well,
too.
and I will say this: that is a definite real thing. I don't know. I might have sent it to you. I'm not sure if I did. There was an article. They went back and they looked at all the Chiefs playoff games over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I saw it.
And it's actually ridiculous and disgraceful. I mean, it's like in the last 3 years, like roughing the passer calls against Mahomes, 8. Roughing the passer homes, Chiefs on the other team, 0.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and other things too, just even the fact that they don't even call penalties on them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they're middle of the pack in penalties. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, they're perfect. They have no penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a thing. I mean, no, look, I don't completely believe in the conspiracy theory, that the NFL is trying to make them win because it's a great story. But you still have to sort of, it still lingers out there a little bit because that is what they want. That is what they want. And so, what, do they say to the referees hey, if it's a close game late, and there's a call that's maybe borderline, but it could help the Chiefs raise that trophy again.
I don't think that conversation actually takes place.
You don't think so?
I think there's already been I think it's more of if it's an unsaid thing. I
don't want this to be a topic. I really don't. It's almost like we're looking for excuses for losing even before we started the game. I say put that bullshit aside and let's win the ball game and don't turn the ball over. The difference in that game, a couple of those plays you said, is as great as Hurts was, he had a bad turnover that went back the other way at a bad time. Right, so let's put all that stuff aside and let's go out there and win the game.
And one more thing that will be in our favor this year: no sod father.
Yeah, well,
it's on turf.
Yeah, and I think you as fans we have to put that away too. We have to just
they played on the same field. They played on the same field.
Well, yeah. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is, you can still send AJ Brown down the field, and if he outruns his guy and catches the ball, there's nothing they can do about that.
That's exactly right.
So long as he doesn't push off,
except
then they can call it.
Yeah, except call a bullshit holding penalty.
Right.
Something like
Dude, is that Lattimore guy? He needs to go. I'm so tired of that guy. And he how many pass interference calls did he get called against him against the Eagles this year?
Well,
like 5?
I think the guy's a hothead, and I don't really like.
I have to say,
Steve thinks you're naive.
Yeah.
Oh, go away, Pittsburgh Steeler fan.
I have to say, I think I just completely lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
Lattimore.
Oh yeah, Lattimore. When he was picked up the trade deadline, I was like, wow, that's a hell of a pickup. I'm like, he's a really good cornerback. And I feel like now watching him play for the Commanders, now I know why they let him go.
Yeah. He's all over people.
He's all over the place.
Yeah. And that could be a function of you're coming into a new defense.
Maybe.
A new team.
Yeah.
But it's obvious that, and it's for a different show, but it's obvious that the Commanders have a lot of things they got to do on defense, but they've got a guy they can build around. They've got a coach who they can build with, and they've got a GM who's real and an owner who's real. So they'll
let's break this out though, just for a moment.
Sure.
The owner, Joshua Harris, has been getting slammed today because now I'm not sure if but because you're not really in a place where you follow like all 4 sports teams. But when you're in a city like that, what happens is Flyers, Eagles, Sixers all post, congrats Eagles,
right,
that kind of thing. You got your Flyers and your Phillies. And apparently Josh Harris wouldn't let the Sixers send out a congratulations post.
Unacceptable.
Because he was so pissed off.
That's ridiculous. He should go buy
He's a moron.
He should go buy the Washington Wizards.
Dude, he is going to be the most hated owner since, I don't know, Leonard Toes.
Yeah, he's the worst.
Yeah.
The worst.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe he's looking to sell the Sixers now that they can't seem to get the program.
Please do.
The process.
Please do. Golly, please do.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, guys? I think about the pickups, and we said, yeah, Saquon was a good pickup, and obviously the best pickup, and Bond was a great pickup. But you think about down the middle of that defense, bringing back CJ GJ was freaking genius. He set the tone back there. I mean, the young kids are good, but when he sticks people, they know he's there. And I think he's having a great season.
Yeah, and also too, you can't say enough about really some phenomenal draft picks to rebuild that defense.
Oh hell yeah!
From Quinyon Mitchell to Cooper DeJean to Jalen Carter to
Ojomo, yeah,
to who's why am I drawing a blank?
Jordan Davis,
Nolan Smith.
I
mean, even Josh Sweat was a draft pick, even like in the 3rd round. I mean, he's really made a lot of good draft picks.
Yeah, well, he's been there for 24 years.
Yeah.
And
I think he learned no more Jalen Reagor picks.
Yeah,
go to the big schools.
Alabama, Oklahoma,
Georgia, Texas,
Georgia, Michigan. No need to go anywhere else except Quinyon Mitchell, Toledo.
Yeah.
And he is the man.
Yeah, where did
Toledo kid?
Jerry Rice went to Mississippi State, so you never know. But that's the thing about a lot of GMs nowadays, and these blue blood schools that they go to. I was just thinking the other day, and then we'll go on to our mashup before we finish out the show here. Steve DeFlitch says, "I know a worse owner." Yeah, I think he's talking about Rooney. I was thinking how many Ohio State products, because you go back and you look at the Commanders, they drafted Chase Daniels out of Ohio State, total bust. The Bears drafted Justin Fields out of Ohio State, total bust. I mean, I remember Eddie George, he was from Ohio State. Mm-hmm. He was good, but he wasn't. He was great for a little while, but
Remember Maurice Claret?
Maurice Claret, total bust. Yeah.
JT Daniels or
Yeah.
JT Barrett, Troy
Yeah.
Smith.
Yep, you got it. Total bust.
Some of them are good. Marvin Harrison's good.
Marvin Harrison's pretty good. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm just saying that I think that where the gems come in is you talk about Quenyon Mitchell, Toledo. That's really where you make the difference up from drafting and becoming, from having a good draft to a great draft.
Right.
Well, that was no surprise. Let's be clear. He was the highest rated cornerback. In the draft.
Yeah, he was. But
still, a lot of people would probably say Toledo. I don't know.
I can guarantee you the Steelers would not have picked him.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing, though. The interesting thing is like you have to believe in something. And I know the Eagles do put a lot of emphasis on the Senior Bowl. And they said that basically in the Senior Bowl, nobody could get open against Quenyon Mitchell. So that's number one. Number two, they knew they had a high character guy because with the portal, Alabama wanted him. Alabama wanted Quenyon Mitchell. And he said, you know what? Toledo's the school that gave me the scholarship. I'm sticking with them.
Yeah, and that's about character.
Right. So it's character.
You're diving a lot deeper into the guy's character, as opposed to now. Steve says I'm a dumbass because he's talking about Bob Nutting, but Steve, we're talking about football, right?
Yes, football.
So you're diving into the character, kind of like diving into the character of a guy named George Pickens, who
not diving into the character of George Pickens.
You were told was a complete asshole, but you drafted him anyway. And everybody who told you that was right.
Is it mashup time or Pittsburgh time?
Mashup.
It's mashup.
It's mashup time.
What do you got in mashup, Rube?
Do it.
Hey, listen. Why don't we go to the big board here for a second? And guys, I think I'm going to be right. I'm going to be right.
Rube, you might have jinxed yourself. They said that Embiid had a great practice today. No swelling. He's going to get ready to play again.
Hey, guys, I like my chances.
That's crazy.
Hey, to add to the Sixers mashup, how about the fact that the only teams that the Sixers can beat are the very best teams in the league? So they beat the Celtics, they beat the Cavs, but they can't beat anybody else.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But and Flyers, you know what? Flyers were on a really nice stretch for a while. I think they did drop the last two.
Yeah, bottom fell out the last two.
Yeah, so we'll kind of have to see what happens there. But they're playing respectable hockey.
How about Penn State picking up Ohio State's defensive coordinator for $3 million?
Yeah, that's weird. Like, what is he? Is his contract was up and he just said I'm out of here? I don't get it.
I didn't read the deep details, but it's like he's now the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country.
Right.
And listen, that's less than you're playing some of the kids. So how bad could that be?
Yeah. well, maybe in the off season we'll talk about NIL because I am not a fan of it at all, and I know a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, neither am I.
But that being said, boys, next week I think we'll come back and we'll do actual Super Bowl predictions. We'll break down the matchup. Of course,
let's let it marinate a little bit.
It'll marinate until next week. We'll catch up with the Flyers and the Sixers, and of course, spring training is right around the corner.
Pitchers and catchers report.
So at this point right now, I'm going to thank you for watching the Philadelphia Sports Porch all over the world. If you're watching us live, we're here every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time. What is Steve saying? Paid him more than OSU, much more. Yeah, he's going back to the Ohio State thing.
Hey, by the way, real quick before we sign off, rest in peace, Bob Uecker. Just a bit outside. One of the best.
Yeah. Good dude.
I did love Bob Uecker. Yeah,
good dude.
All the light beer commercials. R.I.P. Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball.
Yeah.
Amy May says, I love that you three plus Steve all do your shows. You were all in our wedding.
A little feel-good touch from Amy May.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy May.
I don't need to remember the wedding.
Yes. It wasn't a good wedding for you.
Actually, it was a very good wedding.
Good and then bad.
Then bad. All right. We will be back next week with another edition of the Philadelphia Sports Porch. I am your technical director, and I am